Andrew, the reason he even got to where he was by being outside of the box. They were trying to run a traditional campaign. Like I said, they got the money, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, let's be serious, right? Let's run a serious operation. But then that kind of took away from what made him, what got all of us on board. And that also just kind of made him forgettable, so.
Yeah, it's, I think maybe there was probably a feeling like he needed to cross over to become more mainstream to appeal to a broader group. But maybe that took away some of, kind of the uniqueness about him. Because actually, when you put it that way, like those ads, they could have been a Pete Buttigieg ad, or they could have been a Cory Booker ad.
Yes.
They weren't uniquely a Yang ad.
They were very, very standard, like safe. They were very safe. And like I said, at that point, when they were in the circulation, when they got put into the circulation with all the other ads, it was easy to, like, I would know when an Andrew Yang ad came on. I would pipe up, but I had tuned out every other ad. So if you weren't a Yang supporter, you were tuning that one out too,
Yeah. Actually, Soldier has a question. Do you think the commercials, clearly it sounds like you think the creative direction of the commercials weren't great. Do you think just the act of buying the ad time was a good use of resources, or do you think we should have tried something completely different?
They had to do it. It increased the name ID. So before we were running these ads, nobody had heard of them. So yes, people had heard of them after those ads. They were, like, for what they were supposed to do, they did increase, like, his, the people knew who he was and that he was running, but they just weren't compelling ads that really set him apart. Like I said, they were just easily absorbed into the fray of all the other, because, like, seriously, in Iowa, like, when it was a commercial break, it launched right into Bernie ad, Biden ad, Amy ad, Pete ad, sometimes a Yang ad, and it's people tune that out, like, I mean, they'll absorb that, okay, Andrew Yang's in the race now, but they didn't do anything to, like, differentiate him from any of the other candidates. Like I said, James Striegel was making way more compelling ads than this company. And James made an ad for our veterans group. Like, one of the things that people were looking for, or what they're always looking for, is, can someone be a commander in chief, right? They want to know that you can command the armed forces. And we never made that case either. But the ad that James made for us, like, and I went to James and I was like, look, I want to, like, Andrew has these amazing leadership qualities, right? I want to do an ad where literally it's just veterans naming off his leadership qualities, right? And we had, I don't know if you guys have seen, like, the video with me and Dr. Russell Toll, where Russ gives, like, this really compelling speech. Like, we had for Yang, we had clips of that. We had, like, I said that I'm looking for a leader with integrity. And then we had Richard Porter. And in this ad, Richard is, like, naming off the various qualities of a leader, like, slowly. And as he did it, you show Andrew, there's clips of Andrew in different scenarios where he's embodying those leadership qualities. And I begged the campaign, I'm like, please put these on the air. Like, this is important to Iowans. It's also important to people in New Hampshire. Like, please, but they didn't. They stuck with, it was like, even just Facebook, buy Facebook ads with it. This is a really good ad. This will work. I'm telling you, I live here. This will work. And they didn't, They stuck with their consultant.
Yeah. I guess it's like one of those football games where you wonder, if you ran a different play, what would have happened?
I know. During the campaign, I was very much pushing this. I was like, do this. And I told Andrew himself. I said,
what did he say?
I said, look, I don't know if you have a contract with them that you can only run their ads. He's like, no, I can do whatever I want. But they just never did. like, and it's not even like Andrew is not even the person to ask. Andrew is literally going from event to event, interview to interview, campaign stuff to campaign stuff. Andrew's not necessarily like making these decisions.
Right.
He has to be the figurehead. He has to, what he was doing is what he had to do.
Yeah. What do you think of the last Iowa debate and not being in there? I mean, from the outside, it seemed like such a huge blow in terms of being taken seriously on, days before the caucus. Did you guys feel like it was a big deal, or maybe it was us outside that were making a bigger deal than we should have?
It was a big deal. Iowans take their first in the nation status seriously, especially ones that vote. And it did, I feel like it did harm us in Iowans taking Andrew seriously. To the point where we had folks that were wanting to go to Drake University and protest. And we were like, please don't, please don't do that. This is already a blow, right? In the state that we've literally put all of our resources in. And so, yeah, it definitely, I feel like it definitely didn't help. It kind of took away credibility, that, like if they're looking for someone that can beat Trump as a minimum requirement, maybe be able to make the debates, right?
So if like hundreds of Yang Gang had showed up at Drake that night to kind of occupy the auditorium,
they did. A bunch did.
And let's say if more had, do you think it would have been like, wouldn't that show that, hey, this man's voice is being suppressed and people want to hear from him, and somehow he's not on the stage?
I see both sides of it. I wanted to be at that protest, but at the same time, like, word had gotten out to like Drake University themselves, and they were like, a little concerned about a scene being made. And when we were trying to be a serious campaign, and we had literally suffered this blow, they didn't want us. They kind of didn't want to look like we were a campaign of. I'm not saying that it wasn't serious. Like I said, I wanted to join it, but I saw both sides. Like the Iowa political machine is very like controlling of their process, and their first in the nation status. So hopefully they won't have that in 2024. Seriously.
Yeah, they really did one to us. The whole country, in my opinion. But after Iowa, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, oh, I'll just get in the Renegade and drive east, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, so I did. I went to New Hampshire. I took my son, and we didn't drive. It was too far. Like, I had a conversation with Andrew after Iowa that told me essentially, but not directly, that New Hampshire was make or break. So I had a lot of people that are like, let's go to, like South Carolina. Let's, people are wanting to, go to various states in the future. So I kind of irritated a lot of people where I'm like, no, please go to New Hampshire. But, yeah, so I went to New Hampshire with my son, and I'll be honest, I didn't get a great feeling from New Hampshire. I actually had gotten a better feeling in Iowa than in New Hampshire.
What was the vibe in New Hampshire? They just didn't know about him, or just didn't like him?
I feel like in New Hampshire they did it. There was. Like they knew of him less. I can't say that I like really traversed New Hampshire and have got a real good feeling. I was just there a weekend, but it felt like, because New Hampshire was a smaller operation because we did put so much into Iowa. The people there were great, but I think that they were up against, just a lot more because we really didn't put, as much resources into New Hampshire as Iowa. I mean, Andrew himself was like you said, they were like his two children. If he visited Iowa, he also had to go visit New Hampshire, you know. So he did spend probably until like January, he did spend equal amounts of time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was definitely less resources in New Hampshire. And when I talk to people, they just didn't. So many people just didn't even know who he was.
Yeah. You know, you had a kind of bird's eye view of Yang as a leader. I'm curious, could you share a little bit about what you learned about him in terms of who he is as a human, or, you know, his leadership style or his values that those of us who didn't have that opportunity can't pick up from, you know, podcast interviews and things like that?
Andrew is absolutely presidential. I will say that. As a veteran, you know, like I said, we know what the qualities of a leader are, right? This is kind of ingrained into us. It's very important. Like, leadership qualities are maybe not something that the civilian side really focuses too much on, but you know, with my military background, he empowered people. Like, I felt empowered by Andrew to do what I was doing, right? I was empowered by him to make decisions. He stood back, right, and let you do your job. He wasn't a micromanager. I like to joke, he never threw a shoe at me or made me eat or he didn't eat like his salad with a comb, or he never did anything that was psycho like that. Like, I will say I've messed up so many times in front, like right in front of him. Mm-hmm. Like, introducing him. This one time, we have signals for, you know, when to wrap it up because Andrew's here or whatever. Mm-hmm. I messed up a signal once. I thought they said he was ready and he wasn't. So I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, your next president of the United States, Andrew. He comes running. He's like, hey, and he's heard my spiel so many times. He's like, Heidi, he's like, I thought you had so much more. I thought you were just getting started. Right. I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't get the signal. And he's just very like accommodating, just very like, he has tact, integrity. Mm-hmm. He's just, you know, I've done stupid things in front of him because, you know, my brain doesn't work right a lot. And he's covered for me, right? Like, it's an issue with, like, there's an older gentleman who thought we were taking pictures, right, in the selfie line. Mm-hmm. And so he was in the line, he didn't give me a camera, and then he went over with Andrew and Evelyn, and he's just waiting for the picture to be taken. And I'm like, oh, he didn't give me his phone. Andrew's like, use your phone. I was like, oh. Perfect. And then I took a picture. Like, it's just stupid stuff because, you know, you're so tired. Like, my brain's it doesn't function well as it is. I was just like frozen. Like, what do I do? And you're just over there, just use your phone. You know, so did that guy ever get his picture? Yes, I sent it to him. He was a Republican too. He was an older gentleman who was a Republican. And he's like, I'm bringing all my Republican friends to caucus for you. So I was so glad we were, because I went and talked to him after, and he told me a story that he was this Republican who goes and listens to all the candidates. He doesn't like Democrats, right? But he does just go and listen to them all when they come into town. And he was so impressed, you know, that he got in a selfie line, and, you know. Good for him. So I sent him the picture and everything. But, you know, like any other, you know, like I imagine if I was working with, you know, Amy, like, I probably would have paid for, you know, just like, you know, like, you know, that they're like keeping score. Like, Andrew, he doesn't keep score, right? He'll help you if he can. Like I said, he's covered for me multiple times. And, you know, he knows my story too. So he knows that I'm not necessarily always in the game or, you know, on the game. And he's very kind, and he's very empathetic. And like, he's not someone that will like go into like an emotional like tangent, like, you know, President Trump, right? He's definitely, he's got that, just that even keeled, like, I've honestly never seen him, like, I've seen him be a little passive aggressive, but I've never seen him like lose control of himself, right? He's very much in control of himself and just, he's a leader. He's, you know, and sometimes he's a little naive. I will give him that, just like the whole New Hampshire with the
whipped cream.
Yeah, I don't even think that's a huge deal, but optics wise, like Zach was like, no, I know this looks bad, and Andrew's just like, I'm like, oh shit. So sometimes he like necessarily won't see like something as being bad optics, but just in general, he's just a very kind, like he's an amazing leader. He's the one that empowers his people to do good work.
Now, you know, if a skeptic could say, he sounds like a great guy, a great human, but to be commander in chief, you also have to make some tough calls and make people sometimes unhappy to do the right thing for the country. Do you feel like he had that in him as well, or was that still a work in development? You know?
No, I think he actually was pretty on point with that, because like I said, how many of us are over here like, get back in the race, boss, unsuspend. You know, like you look at Trump is like with the wind, like based on whatever he saw on Twitter, whatever he saw on Fox News, he's spouting off, changing his mind, doing crazy shit. Like Andrew's very much, he'll course correct as necessary, but he's not going to make any wild, crazy, emotion-based decisions, even if you want him to. Like, and also we wanted him to call out the media, right? So many times for blacking him out, but he waited, right, until he had his ducks in a row, where he had the, you know, he wasn't just gonna, because I feel like in regards to like Tulsi, a lot of people just didn't take her seriously because she was constantly, her and her supporters were like, conspiracy. And Andrew's over here like, I can't get, you know, even though these things are happening, I have to play a bigger game, because I just won't be taken seriously if I'm constantly screaming that the sky is falling or that I'm being, you know, even if it's true, right? So when he did it once, he did it forcefully, and, you know, they listened to him, right?
Yeah.
So he's just not someone to make decisions on impulse or emotion, and that's a good leader.
Yeah. Let me get to another question before I do that. Thank you, C. Prouse, for the super sticker. Nell has a question. In 2024, let's say Yang runs again, and he's going to have way more money and way more name recognition. And probably the country will have big problems still. Do you think at that point he should run a more traditional campaign because he will have more traditional resources? Or do you think he should kind of do, you know, let Andrew be Andrew kind of approach?
He had to do the less traditional to get his name out there. His name is out there. He's now pretty much a household name. By 2024, I think that he will be very much a household. So he doesn't necessarily need to do the outrageous things that get attention. Because, you know, there were a lot of things that were like, hey, we've got to do, you know, there's, you know, we just like, you know, the crowd surfing and like the hologram, stuff like that. It was definitely, you know, do outside of the box things because, you know, to get that attention, to get noticed.